Okay, folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier. I'm going to do a thought for you on the Women's War Game Match 2024 Survivor Series. Why it upset me, why I feel like, for me at least, it ruined the rest of the show. I just lost a lot of faith in the WWE and how things are going. I know that business-wise, they're doing quite well and all that, but as far as the in-ring product, as they say, I was thoroughly disgusted and disappointed in a lot of the aspects of that women's War Games match, and now I'll tell you why. Just the first 5 minutes, Bayley, her forearms were just nowhere near realistic looking. And I know, yes, it's wrestling, and as attuned fans, we can see this stuff for what it is, and that's fine. But if you missed it the first time, just watch the first 5 minutes of Bayley throwing these forearm smashes that looked god awful and horrendous. Just nothing even attempting to look real. I mean, it looked like when two kids play wrestle and they're not really trying to hurt each other. Like if you're just jostling around having fun with a friend and you're throwing forearms that are clearly inches away from their body as a joke. That's what it looked like. And this isn't a professional wrestling match. There was a moment that probably a lot of people, for them, not for me, thought was the highlight of this women's War Games. Tiffany Stratton in one corner, and I believe it was Iota, I can't say her name, Sky, the Queen of the Sky, the Empress of the Sky. She's in the other corner, Iona Sky. They changed her name a few times. She's very good, actually, but they did this thing where they both launched launched from the corner of the cage. However, they're both just kind of looking at each other, and like, okay, 1, 2, 3, let's jump. And it's like, this is just a different type of wrestling. This is why old school wrestling fans never really got into La Lucha Libre, because La Lucha Libre, Mexican pro wrestling, is so kind of circus choreographed, emphasized, not meaning to look like a realistic fight in any regard. But La Lucha Libre, it's exciting for that culture, and it's part of the. I love it for what it is. But old school wrestling fans, if you're watching Tully Blanchard versus Magnum TA trying to rip each other's heart out at Starrcade 85, and then you tune in to see these guys, with the topecitas and the pushing one hand on a guy's shoulder to send him to the ropes. Just, that's the divide. And now it's become a generational divide. Like, I'm making a point here, in case you're not following, that the old school wrestling fan who never got into La Lucha Libre is similar to, the old school wrestling fan who can't stick with the stuff now when they have this type of match opening the show nonetheless. And I'll just take it to this point. I mean, War Games without bloodletting, it's like a day without sunshine. It's just, what's the point? I mean, if you're going to have these War Games, back in the day, 1987, I believe the first War Games was on the 4th of July in Atlanta's Omni, the Great American Bash Tour, and then the second one was the end of that month in Florida somewhere. But if you're going to do a War Games, there really has to be blood. Back in the day, if you had a cage match, period, there was going to be blood. And with the WWE, I get it. It's a different period. Why have a cage match? Why not just have a regular match, or a last man standing match, or a last woman standing match, or why not just do traditional 5-on-5 Survivor Series matches, for that matter? I mean, that's one thing that I don't quite understand. It's probably the Triple H influence, because he grew up as an NWA fan and a Ric Flair fan. But why do they feel the need to take the best of a different generation from a different promotion and trot it out at Survivor Series? Why not just do 5-on-5 women's Survivor Series match to open the show? And then if you had to, you could do the men's War Games. And this has been my point for a while. When they do these two main events, and they break them down by gender, at least they're breaking them down by gender, unlike our society. But basically, when you have a women's 5-on-5 match, and then a men's 5-on-5 match, War Games, both of them, it's redundant. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, this bloody, crazy match you're only going to see once every so often, but we're doing 2 in one night. And I mean, that theory goes to a lot of wrestling stuff. You know, if you remember the TNA days, Total Nonstop Action, and I did go to one of these shows, the Sixth Stage of Steel, the Lockdown pay-per-views. I went to the one with Angle versus Samoa Joe in Worcester, Mass. But it's like, you know, a hat on top of a hat. How can you have 7 or 8 cage matches on the same show and they all mean the same thing? And people had the same type of criticism for ECW when every match had a lot of blood in it, you know what I mean? And eventually ECW would mix things up with the high flyers and stuff. But then you look at, you know, it's with going to this War Games, and also the Women's Royal Rumble and the Men's Royal Rumble, and it's Elimination Chamber. Just, I mean, am I mistaken? Was there a time when the WWE... did they ever go so far as to have 3 Elimination Chamber matches on one show? I know they did 2, because they would have a SmackDown Elimination Chamber and a Raw Elimination Chamber on the same pay-per-view. That was bad. I can't recall, but did they ever push the point and have 3 Elimination Chambers on one Elimination Chamber show? My point is, folks, and there's several points here, but just the redundancy is a setup. I think, now that I think about it, if they had just had these same women, I can't explain Bayley's forearm smashes, how bad they were. There's no excuse for that. There's no explanation that they could give me that would satisfy me. But her forearms were so bad. There was another point where Nia Jax, who's traditionally a bad wrestler and has been employed for 10 years because of her cousin, The Rock. And yes, that's true, folks. I mean, we see how I guess it would also be her cousin, you know, Simone, is that the young lady's name? Ava Raine or whatever, The Rock's daughter. She's not being universally praised, and she has employment. So, but when Nia Jax did a chair shot to Bayley, and Bayley just kind of gave her back, you know, Bayley giving Nia Bayley's back, like, oh, hit me on the small of my back, and just the little powder puff of a chair shot. And folks, I mean, if you're a WWE fan and you watch this whole pay-per-view or this whole premium live event, you sat through it and you enjoyed it, please let me know in the comments, because I'm really interested in your opinion. How can you stick through the rest of the show with the same level of interest? And I'll just tell you what happened. And I'm a hardcore wrestling fan. I've been a fan. I've done ring announcing. I've done commentary. I had a job interview for the WWE a long time ago for the creative writing team. There's this woman entering the Papa John's. That's kind of interesting. But anyway, years ago, you know, how can you sit there and say it didn't affect your enjoyment of the show? For me, I'm watching that, and then the next match, I think, was the Braun Breaker, Sheamus, and the other guy, the skinny guy match, and I just found myself getting up out of my room, wandering into another room, getting on my computer, still leaving the premium live event on, and just tapping away and doing some computer stuff, because my faith in the show had been lost, is the point. And from what I could hear in the other room, it sounded, I mean, they were selling it. Of course, Michael Cole sells everything. He's a fucking hyena of a commentator. But, I mean, it sounded like a pretty good match, and I do like Braun Breaker and everything. And what I was saying, I cut myself off. I went to the NXT live show in Jacksonville, you know, a weekend ago or 2 weekends ago. So I still support the future. I still have hope for this sport. But things like this Women's War Games match, it just soured the rest of the fucking show. And I see the tweets and the X, you know, on X, and everyone's got their opinion. And, you know, it always comes down to, like, AEW fans. Well, you know, if you idiot Marks or you idiot McMark WWE fans like this show, you're an idiot. And you criticize AEW for any little thing. I don't know if people were getting as specific as I got. I mean, I didn't see anyone else but me make comments on Bayley's forearm smashes. Oh, her screaming elbows. That was the other goddamn thing. So still, I think it was still in that first 5 minutes, or maybe the second period with the 2 minutes. And also, they're changing the War Games. Like, the WWE is changing War Games. So now it's like a 5 minute period and then 3 minute periods. It's like, what are you doing? Why? Also, I don't like this pinfall bullshit in the goddamn war games. It's submission or surrender, assholes. That was the whole fucking point. I don't know if they've taken away the match beyond. It used to be called War Games, the match beyond. War Games was the strategic time of people entering the ring, and the match beyond was when everybody was in the ring, and then you could actually win the thing with the submit or surrender. So what is submit or surrender? Submit, I took it as a person quits upon themselves. Like, hey, you got me in a hold and I'm submitting. I quit, I submit. A surrender is like if your teammate is really fucked up and injured and he can't speak for himself and you throw in the white towel on behalf of your team, which I don't think they've... The only time they ever did that was when El Gigante came in and saved Brian Pillman, the original Brian Pillman, from the Four Horsemen plus Zbyszko in the 1991. Oddly enough, the Horsemen actually won a War Games, and then quickly thereafter were disbanded. And poor Arn Anderson, he had been in all these War Games for 3 or 4 years, and then he's injured and can't compete. They put Zbyszko in, and then Arn fucking has to watch Zbyszko win a War Games with his buddies, Flair and Wyndham and Sid. Oh, my neck. So anyway, folks, I'm a wrestling historian. I'm a purist. I'm old school. I do appreciate that these wrestling things are still happening. My interest has waned. I just listened. I just started to listen to Keith Elliott Greenberg's audiobook, Too Sweet: The Independent Wrestling Revolution. So I do respect the fact that wrestling is still going. But, it's up to people like myself to monitor it, to check in once in a while, to keep these assholes honest, because certainly the idiot McMarks aren't going to do it. Certainly the mainstream Mark fan who just, who gets all excited to watch the A&E biographies of Mick Foley, and they think they're fucking learning something. You're not learning a goddamn thing that Vince or Triple H or whoever the hell's in charge now that's not getting charged with something. They're spooning you a version of reality that may or may not be true. I'm giving you the goddamn real facts, and of course most idiot fans can't stand that. But I try my best to educate the fucking masses, and sometimes it happens and sometimes it's not. And if you're saying, well, gee whiz, Mike, you seem a little angry today. Well, I tried to do this video yesterday out of the goodness of my fucking heart, and some first-class prick asshole fuck got on here and started making derogatory comments to me, saying hateful things to me, and I lost my cool. I got very upset and got very angry, and as you can see, I'm getting angry and upset now just thinking about it. So I stopped the broadcast, and for all the good people, if any of you people were there yesterday, well, you can blame that piece of shit asshole. Don't blame me. But it's just upsetting to me that I try to educate out of the goodness of my goddamn heart. I try to educate you fucks about real professional wrestling, and the thanks I get is no thanks at all. So it's very disturbing to me. This platform has not treated me well in the 5 or 6 years that I've put a lot of time into it. So I'm looking for another platform. Okay, so if you have any fucking suggestions, there's a guy with pink camo and a pink shirt over there. And tribal tattoos. Come on. So, but the point is, if you want to fucking suggest, one of these other platforms, whatever, make a suggestion. I'd like to continue to share my wonderful wrestling insights, my wonderful wrestling memories. The Mass Wrestling fans chomping at the bit. He's been asking me when he's going to get back on the air. But I just can't tolerate, in my time away, like my half vacation here from doing these videos, I have to say that my freedom of my mind is enjoying the break from my role as an educator of wrestling, because it's just, there's very little payoff for every good person, the Shane McKennas of the world, the Nikita Breznikovs, the Australian pal of mine there, you know what I mean? For all the good people, there's tons of shitheads, is what it comes down to. So if you find folks want these wrestling rants to continue, you're going to have to start sharing these goddamn videos. You're going to have to start doing some promotion of this thing, because quite frankly, without that, without me getting jerked off a little bit, that I lose interest in telling you all these wonderful stories. So I need my ego rubbed too, assholes. So that's it. MikeMessier.com /shop. Go to Mike Messier. You can find my merch. Goodbye.